The word is being thrown around everywhere right now. Recession. In order to weather the recession storm, and it is a storm, for it will pass, you need to get prepared. In this episode, I'm going to chat with you about the top things you can do to get prepared and recession-proof your business. So grab your wellies and let's go.
Incoma's Marketing Strategies is a podcast for small business owners hosted by Audrey Kirchner, co-founder and chief marketing strategist at Incoma, helping you navigate the world of marketing so that you can market your business in the right way, see growth, and thrive regardless of the industry you're in. To learn more about Incoma and what we do, ask a question, or schedule a marketing evaluation, go to the website incoma.com. That's INKYMA.com. Listen to the show on your podcast player of choice, the Incoma website, or the Incoma YouTube channel. Just search for Incoma Marketing Strategies and you'll find what you need.
So before we get knee deep into the waters of the recession, let's just talk about a little housekeeping. So in the show notes, which are on incoma.com for the particular podcast, there are links to articles and podcast episodes that I am going to reference, a rough transcript of the entire podcast. Then we always have other things in these podcasts. If sometimes I make product recommendations, book recommendations, those links are going to be in there as well. We are partners with the products that I recommend. And you'll hear me talk about a bunch of products over and over again because we use them, we love them, and a lot of them we've used for years and years and years. So I want to make sure you're getting the best things to help you market your business. So by using our links, we do get a small commission, and it just helps us to keep on creating the content that we're creating. So if you're going to buy something, use our links. We really appreciate it. Okay, so recession. In good times, business owners get lazy. Clients are just showing up, they're signing up, and you're really not putting a whole lot of effort into it, right? I kind of say this tongue in cheek. If you could see my face here, I'm like rolling eyes at myself here because we as business owners, we work really hard to make it look that effortless, right? But yes, things do fall off our plate when that plate is very full, right? Some things with marketing might fall off, things with accounting, we might let certain subscriptions go. And then a recession comes, right? And a recession, is when consumers and some businesses stop or pull back spending because of social and or economical factors, right? Now, what's interesting is I'm not sure how many small business owners remember the very, very beginning of the COVID pandemic in March, April of 2020. That's like when things first started shutting down. It got a little weird. And when things get weird, we stop spending money. So in my mind, that very beginning period was actually really a recession. We didn't know what was going on. We were all at home, weren't going out, and we knew it was going to be for a long time. We probably didn't know it was going to be for as long as it was. But then as soon as we started seeing where things were going, how things were laying out, certain industries shot through the roof, like crafts and exercise and electronics. And then others continued to suffer, like restaurants, gyms, hairstylists. And then during that time, I'm watching everything very closely. I was just like glued to the internet, social media, YouTube, reading articles, all that kind of stuff. And what I saw was that the businesses that were tough, that were determined, they got going. They figured it out. They figured out a way. I think the ones that got back on their feet faster kind of already had an idea in their head, if not a plan in place for a recession. And that's why they survived at first, right? They got their feet under them faster than everybody else. And then they thrived, right? And then they thrived even more. My business, my marketing company, Incoma, we weren't immune. I had those first 2 months, March and April. Not only did I not have new clients come in the door, but existing clients, like a lot of them turned services off. They did that panic thing. Oh, I'm going to stop spending. But it was only for a couple of months. And I used that time wisely to, start kicking my plan off. And then the clients came back and things were turned back on because when they turned them off, they didn't just email me and say, turn this off. We had a conversation. I had so many conversations with business owners, clients, potential clients, people I just knew during that time frame to talk about what the heck do we do? And I'm happy to say that all my clients that came back and stayed with me during the pandemic, right? They dusted things off. We talked through things. They're still thriving. They're still alive and they're going strong. I have one client where it was his secondary business. We were trying to get up off the ground for him. That one didn't survive because he doubled down and refocused on his primary business. So I'm not sure that one ever counts. So today, given all that information, preparing you for these tips, and there's going to be 8 of them, I'm going to share with you what I did, what my clients did, what other business owners did during that time, and also discussions I've had with business owners from previous recessions did. So this is like a compilation of understanding how all of this works from the last 12 years I've been in business, and even before then when I was in corporate America, because I learned things then too. So that's why I think this is going to be a really cool episode for you. So number 1, first and foremost, we are a marketing podcast. Keep your marketing budget at the same level and where possible, increase it, right? Businesses should not stop spending during a recession, period, especially on marketing. You know why? Because there's a return on that investment. You know, the old adage is you got to spend money to make money. And it's true. It's not like you're saying, oh, I'm not going to buy a pair of shoes or I need to pull back on this kind of stuff. When you pull back on your marketing, you're actually saying, no, I'm not accepting more leads. I don't want to generate awareness of my business. That is probably the furthest thing from the truth of what you're trying to do. Ignore that knee-jerk reaction to turn spending off and then keep continuing to do it. And when you start seeing stuff about, oh, you used to spend less, realize they're talking to consumers. They're not talking to business owners, right? Business owners, we got to keep spending because increasing your marketing generates more awareness and more leads. And those leads are harder to find during a recession. And so you want to find as many as possible. It's kind of like shaking out couch cushions, right? You got to take all that money, put it right back into the business, go back to the thought process of those early days. The second one is build strong relationships with your existing customer community. And I would start that like right away, right now. Customers are going to stick with you if they feel like you're looking out for them. And so here's the interesting thing from a psychological perspective, right? During a recession, we're spending money as consumers, right? We're not just like spending nothing, right? We need groceries, we need certain stuff. So then we start categorizing things. Is it necessity or is it nice to have? You want to ensure that your business's products, services, or offerings are considered a necessity and not a nice to have. And let's look at the pandemic. All of a sudden, things like crafts and exercise equipment were considered necessities. Think about that. What we think in our head about money and spending is not logical. It's actually emotional first. It's like, what do I need to maintain my base? And that's where we're going to put our money. And so that's why building that relationship is so critical for you to be seen as that necessity. If you're looking out for them, if you are staying in communication, you're doing the right things, you're being helpful, you're solving their problems over and over again, going the extra mile when it doesn't really cost you anything else, that's where you're going to wind up in that necessity category. And then because you do that, we can move on to number 3, because then you can upsell to those existing customers, right? You have probably more than one product or service that you're selling. Don't make the mistake of thinking that because they bought one thing from you or get one service from you, they know everything else that you do. I did 2-part podcast, episodes 30 and 31, about getting more revenue from your existing customers. It's all based on this premise is you've got to tell them all of the things you do, and you got to do it pretty often. So don't assume that they know. Give them suggestions. Be helpful, right? If you bought this, you might like that, right? It's still in that same category. And remember, you as the company are the necessity, not just the product or service. And then the next thing you want to do to kind of carry on top of that is creating incentive programs to keep those current customers happy, sitting in the necessity category, and then to gain new ones as well that see what you're offering and think, yeah, I need that now too. And that special offer that you create doesn't have to be forever. If you position it the right way from the moment you introduce it, that there is an expiration date to it, you're not going to get a whole lot of backlash when it goes away. And people like things like that, especially if they look at it and go, oh, it's something I really want, it's kind of a necessity, but because you're giving me such a great deal on it, I'm absolutely going to do it now. I'm going to take advantage of it. A company that I thought did this really well during the pandemic is a company called Affinity. They make graphic design software. It's competitive to the Adobe suite of products. So if you've heard of Photoshop and Illustrator, they make similar products, and they're really, really wonderful. They're not as expensive. They're one-time license purchases as opposed to the recurring subscription. And so what they did is like they said that if you bought their online and their tablet version, they're going to give you 50% off the whole deal, the whole shebang. And that was really great because if you needed to cut back on the expense of that subscription service by spending money once and getting it at a discount, making the switch or trying it out was a no-brainer. And the great thing is that I think people bought more because of the fact that it was bundled, whereas if they just bought one, they were actually spending more. So number 5 is join a BNI chapter. BNI is a networking, an international networking group where members of a chapter help each other find business. That is its purpose. That is its goal, right? It's not a fun lunch club. It is not a community-based service thing. No, it is I'm helping you find business. You're helping me find business. Let's all work together. Sometimes it's called your sales team sitting in the room with you. And this type of a group, if you're a member established, this is your BFF during a recession. You're with like-minded business owners that are spending their time every week to get to know you, to help you build your business, and you're doing the same thing. That's who you want in your corner when things get a little squirrely or go off the rails in these economic times. What I think is really cool about this too is that because of the pandemic, BNI has introduced online virtual only chapters in specific regions. So you meet online, you're not in person, and you don't have to live in the region that the chapter has been formed in. You just have to do business there. So if you are a multi-state national company, you can be a member in a chapter on the other side of the country if you want to, which is really cool. In my chapter, which is an online only chapter because I'm a national business, I've got people that are 2 states away, which is really cool. It helps me expand my business. And so a story that I like to share is when I was in a BNI group, gosh, it's got to be 10 years ago now, there was a landscaping company. Hey, Gene, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're still doing well. He had this great story that his landscaping business made it through that recession in 2002, which was like post 9/11, because of the fact that he was in a BNI chapter and he never left. If you are a BNI member, you know the trade guys, sometimes they come and go depending on how economical things are going for them. But Gene's like, no, I stay no matter what because my business is recession proof because of it. And I was newer in my business at the time when he would always tell this story, and it stuck with me because I was like, wow, that is such a smart thing to do as a business owner. And it's one of the reasons why I'm still in a BNI chapter. I've been in one on and off since 2008. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. Number 6 on my list is creating products and services specifically for the recession that if you choose to, you can stop offering once things get back to normal. We saw a lot of this going on. The innovation was astounding during the pandemic. We saw restaurants and people doing all sorts of different things just to be able to keep doing business while we were staying apart. The one thing that we did here at Inkema was, again, weird and different things were happening. Social media wasn't the buzz. But what we did is I put together a webinar series program where we worked with businesses so that they could keep talking to people online. And it was great. That brought us so many new clients, so much new business, so much so that our company actually grew in revenue in 2020, well over what we did in 2019. And I think that one offering amongst all the other ones that we did was probably the biggest reason why. So number 7 is don't be tone deaf. You're going to keep your marketing out there, right? But you got to look at all of it and make sure the messaging is still appropriate for what's going on socially, economically in the world. I think you should be doing this all the time anyway. There's always like subtle shifts in how people read and think about things. But when you have big things like recessions happen, you got to be particularly careful. Acknowledge that it's tough, that you're in it with them, that you want to ride this storm out with your existing customers or new customers or what's in it for them, and make sure all your marketing messaging reflects it. So go look at your website copy, dust that homepage copy off, take a look at it. Look at what your description says in your Google My Business listing and on your Facebook page and on your Instagram. That's where I want to make sure you look. Look at those images too and make sure, they're appropriate for everything that's going on right now. The one question you want to ask yourself when you look at all this stuff is this helpful to people in their current situation, in the world's current situation? And when you look at it, you're going to go, yeah, or no, and then adjust accordingly. And then the last one I'm going to share with you is look at your expenses, right? As businesses, we have expenses and we always want to keep them as small as possible because if we're spending extra, we're not making as much money. And you want to cut out what you really don't need, right? And it happens to all of us. You buy a software subscription, you thought it was going to pan out, it didn't. Maybe you're not happy with a vendor you're working with and you want to try to upgrade or find another one or find one that, does a better job but doesn't quite cost as much or bring it in-house. What can you automate, right? Even though you might be spending money on the tool to automate it, it's going to be far less than manual labor. So when you look at expenses, don't just look at financial expenses, look at time expenses as well. I did a whole podcast on the ROI of time. Make sure that you and your employees are spending their time wisely. That's important during this too, because you're spending a lot of extra brain power trying to figure out all this recession stuff. The last thing you need to be doing is a manual task that you don't need to be, right? Get that stuff off your plate. And then throughout all that, just ask yourself the question, can you find a better value for your spend? If you have to spend it, get the most out of it. Okay, so we've come to the portion of the podcast episode where I talk about what to do next and taking action. So this is what I want you to do. Make a plan right now, this week. The recession, as of this recording, it's not here yet. It's kind of looming. It may come, it may not, but you want to be prepared. A lot of what I've talked about today doesn't have to be executed next week. But if you have a plan in place on what you think you're going to want to do, it's going to make it far easier to execute it when the time is right and necessary. So in addition to the plan that you want to get in place right now, there are two things that I think you should do immediately. One is to join a networking group like a BNI. I'm not saying you have to join BNI, but that's the one I think that's going to give you the best return on that time and money investment. But there could be other groups, right? The reason I say do it now is because you're dealing with other people and it takes time to build trust and to get to know everybody and to get that referral and business lead engine going. So you don't want to turn that on when you're already oh my goodness, I need to start generating more revenue. You want that in place. And then the nice thing is you don't have to do it yourself. You can delegate it to someone else. Or if you want to double down, you can join one group, they can join another group. Or if you got 2 or 3 employees, join 2 or 3 different groups. And then also look at those expenses. It's always the right time to look and see if there are any expenses that you don't need. You can lessen, you can automate. Streamlining is something you should always constantly be doing. So here are my final thoughts for you on this topic. Recessions don't have to be scary. Get prepared and then pay attention, and they're far less scary. I found that during those times, there is heartache, there is sadness, there are things that people don't like. But if you're watching and paying attention, that's where kind of innovation can come out too. It's kind of like the lemonade of the recession, right? That innovation, it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. It can benefit you. So trying to put together a marketing plan for something like this is challenging. It's difficult. And this is where working with a professional marketing strategist like myself can come in very handy for you. So while you are the subject matter expert of whatever it is that your company does, this is what I do all day long. I bring a lot of knowledge to the table because I'm looking at trends in industries, and then I look at cross-industry as well. If you listen to episode 79, where I do cross-industry innovation, that's coming from part of the process and practice of what I do when I onboard a new customer, and we're trying to figure out what their marketing should look like. So I can sit down, any really good marketing strategist can sit down, look at your landscape and say, here's what you need to do to get ready for a recession. And it could be as simple as ramping up what you're already doing. Maybe your marketing plan is solid, but then you need to ramp some things up, maybe put those incentives in place. What do those programs look like? They're going to talk through with you what that looks like. And then also should be able to give you some indicators of, okay, here's when you want to think about turning it on. And it's more like, okay, when we start seeing these things happen, let's sit down and have a conversation and figure out if that is the right time to start turning this stuff on. This is one of those things that you don't want to DIY yourself, right? You want to bring in someone who this is what they do all day long. So here at Income, we love giving back to the business community. If you want to talk about that marketing recession plan, go to the website, Inkama.com, INKYMA.com, and book a 45-minute free consultation with me. I'll talk to you about that. You want to talk about SEO, digital advertising, what's going on with the world of Google? That 45 minutes is yours to talk about whatever you want to get your mind right about your company and your marketing. If you've got a quick question, or even better, if you have a suggestion for a show, I love those. Scroll down to the contact form at the bottom of the page, just fill it out. All that comes right to me. We have a Marketing Masterminds blog resource for you where we have articles and videos on software tools and recommendations and things you should be doing if you are still in a DIY phase or hybrid DIY phase. There's a lot of great resources there for you. And then I do recommend signing up for the Marketing Masterminds newsletter, where all that gets pushed to you. So it can just show up in your inbox and you can decide if the topic that's there is one that you want to consume at that moment in time or save it for later. So I hope you found today's episode inspiring, helpful, maybe give you a little bit more peace of mind. If so, please share it with other business owners. They need that same inspiration and peace of mind. And our job as a business community is to help each other grow and thrive. And that is what the Income Marketing Masterminds and podcast is all about, is helping you guys so that you can stay in business and grow and thrive. So thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have an amazing day.